baby, here I go. Stop the show, beat on my heart now about to explode. I'm about to explode. Feel good. What I'm feeling.
Good evening. Happy Thursday, happy Friday Eve to you, and welcome to this week's episode of Ignite Your True Self. I'm Ericka Sallee, your host for this week's show and the weeks prior to this. And I just want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this week's conversation. I'm excited to be sharing it with you. I will say this, it has been one of those days where quite a few times throughout the day, I had to just take a deep breath. You know, when you got a lot of things going on in one basket, you've got, this is exciting. And another basket, you're like, how is this going to work? So it's been one of those kinds of days. And so I have been looking forward to spending this time with you. For those of you who happen to be watching the show live, and for those of you who will come in and see the replay either on my social media channels or YouTube, then I do want you to hashtag replay and let me know that you have the opportunity to stop by, check out the show. And of course, I'm going to ask you to share your thoughts and your feedback on anything that resonates with you as part of the conversation. So before we get started, let me take this opportunity to introduce myself for those of you who may have landed here for the first time. Perhaps you have not been with me in previous weeks to check out the other topics, or you're not following me on social media. And hopefully after this conversation, you will begin to do that. And I'll tell you how to do that in a little while as we wrap up the show. But as a speaker, a self-help author, and transformation success coach, I get super excited because I get to share with women and organizations different strategies to help them move beyond barriers that may be stopping them from igniting their true self. That feels like it's on my lip. Igniting their true self. And you might be saying, well, what exactly is your true self? So there's a couple different things that I like to use interchangeably. That is your true self, your true synergy, the essence of who you were meant to be, the best version of yourself. So you will hear me mention those words interchangeably quite a bit throughout this conversation, as well as everything else that I get to share with you in this conversation and others. And what that simply means is that it gives you the opportunity to figure out what is it that connects you to something that feels good, that feels purposeful, that helps you to live and feel and be fulfilled. There's so much going on around us. And I do believe that each and every one of us has to find that thing that will help us to live in that trueness of who we are, because that's the place where we may have to go inward to be settled in, to find peace with, and then also we get to share that out with the world. I do believe that that is attached to gifts and talents and different things that we can do to make the world that we get to serve, whatever that looks like, a little bit better. And I'm sure that you would agree with me that we could use a whole lot of better right now. And so this show is just one opportunity where I get to share little nuggets to help you do just that. You know, sometimes it just takes one word or one sentence or one thing, one concept, one idea to give you a different perspective, to help you to reach that aha moment that may be just the spark that you need to say, oh, you know what, let me keep moving forward. Let me take the next step. Okay. And so that's what this conversation here on Ignite Your True Self is all about. So before we get started, I do want to just remind us that this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it is imperative for us to recognize just how important it is for us to call that out, just because we are dealing with so many things right now. Every time you turn on the news, if you look at your social media feed, you have conversations with your family, your friends, you know that there is a lot happening all around us. And it is imperative for us to take ownership of our mental health. Now, I said this last week, but I'll say it briefly again here, just in case you did not see last week's show. And if you did not, then I will encourage you to go back to my YouTube channel and check out the conversation. But it's important to make a distinction between mental health and mental illness. Mental illness is a diagnosed condition that affects our cognition and our emotion. It could be things like bipolar disorder, excessive depression, schizophrenia, things of that nature. Mental health, however, is the ability for us to process information on a day-to-day basis. How is it that we're taking care of ourselves? How are we framing the thoughts that we have? How are we making sure that we invest in self-care and healthy living and really handling the things that we have to deal with in a healthy way, whether that's your bills, your family, your friends, your job, your business, all of those things. And so having a system in place to help do that is really what mental health is. It's managing the day-to-day stuff. And I got to tell you, earlier this week, I have a laptop that does not give you a warning when it's time or getting ready to shut down. So I'm in the middle of using it, and all of a sudden I see the notification that comes up that says my battery is low. So before I could run and get the charger, plug it in, it just cut off. And so I got frustrated because I thought, dang it, it didn't even give me a warning. But here's what I recognize. And for those of you who have a device, whether it's a laptop, whether it's your phone, your iPad, you know that there is a battery indicator on that device. And so when I got mad because it shut down because the battery was just done, I had to stop and think to myself, you know what? That indicator was right down in the lower right hand corner of the screen. And so if I had been tuning into that and checking it and monitoring how much battery power I had, then I would have known that I should have gotten the charger, plugged it in way before it shut down. So why am I telling you this? Well, it's the same as with us. We have to be intentional and make it a point to check in with ourselves and not ignoring that, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't have enough energy, or maybe I'm tired, or maybe I need to say no, or maybe I've been ripping and running too much, or maybe I'm thinking about this in a totally toxic way. We have to check in on a regular basis so that we don't get stuck with no battery and then shut down. Okay. So when that happened to me this week, I thought, oh, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And what better time to share that story with you than now? And so if before today, you have not taken the time out to nurture yourself, to care for yourself, to give yourself that time and space that you need to refresh, to renew, to recharge, then make this the day that you decide to do something different. Make this be the time that you do something different. And not just because the calendar is saying that it is Mental Health Awareness Month, but because you know that it's absolutely necessary for you. So I did not want to start the show without reminding us of that. And I do also want to remind you that if you are watching and you feel so inclined to share a thought that you have as we are having conversation tonight, if there's something that resonates with you, if you have an aha moment, then I do encourage you to share that comment in your social media spaces and use the hashtag Ignite Your True Self. Notice True Self is TRUSELF, as you see floating across the bottom of your screen. And you never know what resonates with you might just be the very thing that someone else needs to hear, especially if they're not joining us live in this conversation. So let's go ahead and get into the topic for tonight. Tonight, I want to talk about 3 habits that keep you stuck. 3 habits that keep you stuck. Now, when I say keep you stuck, let's kind of put it in some perspective, and I want you to frame it in a way that makes sense for you. So keeping you stuck could be keeping you stuck from moving forward to achieve goals, keeping you stuck from getting a specific task done, keeping you stuck from taking care of yourself. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so sometimes the very thing that we need to do to ignite that true self in us, or ignite the little spark that will get us closer to something that feels fulfilled, is that we're not taking care of ourselves. Okay. So you fill in the blank for whatever you know that you are or have been stuck in before. And I'm sure that many people can attest to the fact that there has been something or some things that we have had to really stop and think about. and ask ourselves, well, why am I not moving? Okay. And so if you are watching, I want you to type it in the comment. You might say, yep, I've been stuck with, if you feel so inclined to say whatever that is, or you might just say me, M-E. I know exactly what you mean. Yes, I have been stuck. I'm stuck right now. If that is you, type that in the comments and just know that as you do that, you are not by yourself, because we all have something. So I'm going to share, and as I say, now I'm thinking about like 3 habits. So it might be 3 behaviors or 3 characteristics or whatever the case may be. But I do believe that as I share these, then it'll be very clear as to how it may apply to you. Or maybe you're having conversations with your friends, your family, and you hear this. And so you can share these tips with your friends and your family. I'm not sure why that's happening. Look, my battery is fully charged on this device, so let me just keep it moving. But anyway, and I'm not sure if you all can see that. Looks like my screen is fading out a little bit here and there, and so we're just going to keep it rolling. So let me ask this question. And I talked about this last week or week before last, talking about procrastination, right? And I think it's important to bring this back up, because this is probably something that I've heard over and over and over. This is something that I know to be true in situations that I've experienced, which is why I can share this topic, is because I get it and I understand that. And sometimes we might say to ourselves, you know what? There's so much of it that has to be done. Why even bother? Right? Why do I want to bother? Because it's like this. And if you heard the conversation, was it last week or week before? I said that oftentimes when we think about transformation, when we think about doing something different, when we think about a project we want to get done, we sometimes think of it from that perspective, like it's so much, it's so big. So because of that, then why am I even going to bother? So one of the things that may keep you stuck is the fact that you're using the procrastination and the fact that, oh, it's so much and it's so big, so I'm not going to do it, as an excuse. And it becomes an Achilles heel that you can rely on to not move. So what if I said to you, instead of thinking of it that way, instead of saying, oh gosh, it's so much, so you know what, I'm not even going to give it a shot. What if I said, change the framing of that and take one action at a time? All right, one action at a time. Because the reality of it is, being stuck is not something that happens as a result of not taking an action exclusively. Being stuck happens right here. So when we start to think about it, and we start thinking about all the reservations, and we start thinking about all the ifs and the ands and the buts and the this and the that, we've already checked ourselves out of the thing. So what I'm suggesting is, when you start thinking about whatever it is, again, you fill in the blank for what makes sense for you, then ask yourself, well, if it's this big, then what's one tiny step that I can take that will help me get closer to the next part of the big thing? I'm sure many of you have heard or seen a post that has gone around. I've seen it several different times, and I've seen different images associated with the phrase, but it goes something like this. What small step can you take today to get you one step closer to your goal? So when you think about being stuck, and if your mind takes you to, I'm stuck because there's so much and I don't want to do it, then take one action at a time. Take one small action at a time if you need to. And even if it's in small increments, or even if it is an altered version of the bigger thing. So here's an example. And again, I've used this often, and I'm going to continue to use it, because I know for sure that it is probably one of the most common conversations. I've heard it with my clients, with my friends, with my family. I used to say this often, but here's something to think about. So how many of you, when it comes to say losing weight or exercise, and you might say, oh my goodness, I don't have the time. I don't have time to exercise because there's so many things. Okay. So your true self might be connected to your healthiest self. So in this example, one of the things that I share with two of my friends earlier today is a taking one action at a time, one small action at a time. So I'm standing in front of the microwave and I was heating up my coffee. Now, when I make my coffee, I make it in the Keurig and I always put it in the microwave before I drink it because it's hot when it comes to the Keurig. Look, it's hot when it comes to the Keurig, but by the time I add my creamer, I'm like, well, it's not as hot as it was initially. So I give it a little bit more heat. So I'm standing in front of the microwave and I usually give it about 30 to 45 seconds. And so while I'm doing that, sometimes I will stand there and do my leg lifts. So I'll do 15 seconds as the microwave is counting down. When it gets to 15 seconds, then I switch and do the other leg. Okay. So that is taking a really big goal or task of I got to work out. Well, how do I find time to work out? And I'm taking one small action at a time. Most of us, at some point throughout the day, we are standing in front of a microwave or we're waiting for something. And so, taking one action at a time to address the bigger goal of working out and dispelling the myth of not having the time to work out, this is an example of how that might show up. So, then you get unstuck from procrastinating or making the excuse that you don't have the time and, oh my goodness, how am I going to fit it in? Use the time that you're already spending doing something else, like standing in front of the microwave, and then break that big thing down to take one action at a time. In this case, it was an action to just get some leg lifts in 30 seconds. Okay. So that's an example of how, hey, good to see you on live with me this week. Happy to see you here, my dear Jaquista. Thank you so much for coming into the conversation. So that's tip number one. So now here's another thing to consider. So when you think about, oh gosh, what is it that's causing me to be stuck and what's the thing that's going through my head every time I think about it? I want to ask this question. How many of you have ever compared yourself to somebody else? You can type it in the comments. Me. So when we compare ourselves to other people, what ends up happening is, I've got this stuff on what ends up happening is that you're looking at somebody else through the lens that they're showing you. You're looking at their life, their story, their posts, their pictures. Oh my gosh. And you're looking at yourself and you're saying, well, wow, if they're doing that, then can I do that? Am I good enough? Or, I wish I could be like anybody. So that's the reason that we sometimes get stuck, is because we're so focused on what somebody else is doing. What are they bringing to the table? And oh my gosh, don't let it be something that's similar to what you're doing or what you want to do. Because then what you might say to yourself is, well, if they're doing it, then there's no room for me. If they're doing it, why would I even bother? If they're doing it, am I going to be able to do it just as good or just like they can do it or are doing it? And so when we start thinking on those terms, then we start to get stuck in a place. And that place says, well, it's no need for you to even try. Because look, she's pretty, she's doing it better, she's got this going on. So you may as well just sit down. Does that sound familiar? I have done that a number of times, right? I have looked at something and I'm like, dang, maybe I shouldn't. And then I had to catch myself and say, whoa, wait. Just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean that you can't. And just because somebody is doing something a particular way, it doesn't mean anything where you're concerned. Because if you recall a few weeks ago, or I don't even know how long ago now, but I specifically said each of us has a unique blueprint There is something special about each and every one of us. And so, tip number 2 is all about knowing that you are enough and that you have enough to move. So that means we have to take our eye off of somebody else, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and then questioning ourselves and whether we can bring our special something to the table. Because the answer is absolutely unequivocally yes, we can. So sometimes we get stuck on our stuff because we're so stuck on somebody else's stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, it's okay to look at what other people are doing to learn and to grow and to be inspired. But if it means we're going to do that at our own expense, meaning, I'm just going to sit back. I'm not going to do it. Okay, I saw her doing it and I don't think I can do it that way. Well, you're not supposed to do it that way. You're supposed to do it your way. So I just want you to read the words on the screen right now. Know that you are enough and that you have enough to move. Just the sheer fact that you are living and breathing and hearing this conversation means, you know what? There's something that I have. And if I just move out of my own way and stop focusing on somebody else and put my head down, put my nose to the plow and focus on what I have, then okay, that's me getting unstuck. You feel me? All right. So you're not the only one. So we can all identify on some level. All right. So that's tip number 2. Know that you are enough and that you have enough to move. So here's the third tip. And I think about this in the context of little kids. So how many times do we try to go it alone? Right? When we go it alone and yet our way is not working. It's not working exclusively on our own. Anybody? Type it in the comments. Me. So when we go it alone, sometimes we get to a place where we're just like, oh, wait, but I can only go this far. So remember when I said in tip number 2 that you are enough and you have enough to get started, to get you moving. Once you do that, at some point, you're going to discover, oh, wait, you know what? Maybe I can't go it alone. Maybe I shouldn't go it alone. And so tip number 3 is about asking for help. See, sometimes we get stuck because we're in our own space and we get frustrated because we're like, I don't know how to do this. I should know how to do this. Now, granted, there's a lot of material out there. You can go and Google and look up anything. You looking for a new recipe because you want to get unstuck from eating the same thing over and over and over. And you're like, oh, well, I want to find something new. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to go and you're going to search for new recipes. It's the same thing when we talk about igniting our true self, when we talk about reaching a goal or trying to achieve something new, something different, something that brings joy, something that makes you feel like, oh my gosh, this is it right here. Sometimes that means, but wait, I got to ask for help because it might be, well, let me just clarify what I think I know. Or here's what I've done. What's the next thing that I should do? Or here's what I've been thinking. I've been brainstorming this. How do I put it all together? And you might just need somebody outside of yourself to help you do that. I had to break down and do this. There's a couple different situations, but one in particular. I'm working on a special project. I'm going to talk about that at the end. But I realized that I didn't, although I could do pieces of what I needed done, because I'd done it before, I felt like, okay, this isn't where I want to go it alone. There's certain things that I'm sure I'm missing, and I need to get the expertise and the experience of somebody else who can fill in these blanks that I don't know. And so I had to ask for help because there were certain times where I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, I feel like this is what I should do. This is how this should look, but I'm not sure. That's being stuck. And because I was stuck, I knew, ooh, this is the place where I probably need to ask for help. Because I can either sit here and spin my wheels and fight with myself and do this and like, or I could go to the person or the people who knew more than me and could give me the insight that I needed. Now, did it cost? Yeah, it cost in dollars. But I had to think about whether or not that was going to be the best investment at the time because it just made sense. So sometimes us getting unstuck means we've got to attach ourselves to someone else who has the skill, the knowledge, the expertise, the insight to help us get unstuck. Because sometimes people will say things and share different ideas and different strategies that is just a thing to help you to say, oh my gosh, that was what I needed to help me move from this place that I've been struggling in for a really long time. It's just like as a coach, I can't tell you the number of times I've worked with someone and they've got all this stuff in their head and kind of processing and using some of the tools and the strategies. It's like, oh, it's so simple. And I just needed that piece. And sometimes we have to move out of our own self, our own ego. Trust me, I know. Sometimes it's like, oh, let me put this to the side. No, I want to hold on to my ego. I want to hold on to, I can do it by myself. Because, little kids will do that. When you're trying to help them out or trying to give them a better way and they're just trying to learn and they think they got it, they know it. They're like, I could do it all by myself. Sometimes we just can't. So asking for help is the third tip in helping you to get unstuck. Feel free to drop any comments or questions as we prepare to wrap up. I'm going to quickly go back through the 3 tips again, just so that you can have them. If you happen to be in a place where you can take notes, then feel free to jot these down. So again, the topic is 3 habits that keep you stuck. And, here's the problem with being stuck is that then we get complacent and we don't move in a direction that could be the very thing that's going to help us, that's going to bless us, it's going to help us grow. And then we get to use that too, and you hear me say this a lot as well, to touch the world that you get to touch. It's your family, your friends, it's your people, it's your job, it's wherever. If you're in a grocery store and you happen to smile at someone or you have a conversation with someone in the line, like that's a piece of the world that you get to touch. But if you are stuck in a place where you can't allow yourself to see that as a gift and an ability to make a difference, then somebody's missing out. You're missing out on the fulfillment and somebody else may be missing out on the very thing that they need to keep them moving. So I just want to make sure that we put this idea of being stuck in its proper place, right? So the habits, one of the habits that I just mentioned is when we procrastinate. We procrastinate when we look at something and we think, oh my gosh, it's so big, I can't do it. So in order to combat that, take one action at a time. And it doesn't have to be a big, giant leap. It could be one small step, just one thing. What can you do today, in this moment, in this time, to get you one step closer to the goal? It might be like this. Like you're standing here and it might be like that, but it's a step. And you do that and it's like, keep moving. So that's the first tip to get you unstuck. Secondly, we sometimes get stuck because we've got our eyes on somebody else. And we're focused so much on them that it's like, oh, then let me just stay right here because it looks like they can do it better than me. It looks like they have what it takes and I don't. Well, no, know that you are enough. So take your enough and you take that one step. And as you take that step, you may get to a point where you're going to need to ask for help. And that's the thing that's going to keep you moving. So see, it's almost like it's a pattern that's connected. And I'll be honest, as I'm saying this right now, I'm like, oh yeah, all 3 of those, I was giving them to you in like individual parts. But as I think about it, I'm like, no, it's all sort of like the cycle. It's the cycle. Take one small step at a time. Know that you have enough to get started, and you can flip those two around if you want, if you're looking for an order. But as you do that, then you get to the point where you're like, okay, if I get right here and I ask for help and I get what I needed, then I don't stay right here. I get to then move to the next. See how that works? So those 3 tips are the things that will help you to get unstuck. And all you have to do is take one small step at a time. All you have to do is know, listen, I got enough to get started. I might need some help to help me finish or get to next, but I know that's an option. Okay, so think of it from that perspective. So there's a couple things I want to share before we wrap up for tonight's conversation. Number one, I want to go back to the beginning of the conversation when I talked about Mental Health Awareness Month. I know for sure that many of us are experiencing so much. I was having a conversation. I was listening to a couple of things this week, talking to some of my own friends, and I'm just like, I don't even know how to put it into words sometimes when we think about what we hear and what we see on a day-to-day basis, and all of us are trying to put it somewhere. And so as we put it someplace, we need a place to release it out. So I want to make you aware of 2 sessions that I'm holding. I am conducting a facilitated breathwork and guided meditation session on May the 23rd, which is a Tuesday evening from 7 to 7:45. And then again on May the 27th, which is a Saturday morning from 9:30 to 10:15. This is an opportunity to kind of close out Mental Health Awareness Month and then allow you to start some practices going into the next month so that you can make this hopefully a habit. Breath work and meditation are 2 powerful tools to use when it comes to recharging, when it comes to stress management, when it comes to strengthening your lungs, when it comes to changing your mood, increasing your energy, all of those things. And so if you are sitting here and you're like, yes, I know it's Mental Health Awareness Month. This is one of the things that I need to do to connect me to my true self, to take care of me, invest in me, then I do encourage you to go ahead and register for one of those 2 sessions. You can actually go back to my feed, I think posted on yesterday. What's today? Thursday. So yesterday or Tuesday, you can register for one or both of those sessions. It's $15 per session. So if you do one session, it's $15. You do 2 sessions, it's $30. And all the information on how to register and how to pay is included in the post. It will be reposted tomorrow, but I wanted to give you a heads up. So that's one option for you. And then I'm also going to encourage you to join me on next Tuesday evening. I have a special announcement that I'm going to be making about a brand new project that's getting ready to hit the street, if you will. I couldn't think of anything else to say, other than hit the street, but a brand new project that I'm going to be announcing on next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm excited about it, and I'll share more with you, but I'm going to invite you to be connected with me. It will be streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So be sure to stay connected so that you can get the tea on that announcement. So I'm trying to make sure I have all of the things that I wanted to share with you on this evening. So if you have any other questions as it pertains to what's happening in your space right now, you got a lot going on, trying to process it, trying to figure out what's next. How do I do this? How do I find my true self? What's my best version? What is true synergy? My true synergy, mind, body, spirit, wellness. What does that even look like? So if you're asking yourself that question and trying to take this information and put it in the package that looks like what you want, and you're not sure how to do that, then I do encourage you to visit my website at truesynergy.org. There is an opportunity for you to contact me, and we can set up a 30 to 45-minute discovery session so we can talk about what's going on in your world and how this information that you've heard tonight or from one of the other shows that resonated with you, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to put it all together, and you just might need to ask for help. Then you have the opportunity to do that. I'm excited for you and your announcement. Thank you. I'm excited for the announcement too. That means I'm going to be looking for you. I'm going to be looking for you. So definitely stay tuned for that. I'm super excited to be sharing. I'm also going to invite you to follow me on social media. Now, the quickest way to go and get my social media handles and some of the other stuff, as a matter of fact, the registration links for both of the breathwork and guided meditation sessions is on my link tree, which is True Synergy _ as you see at the bottom of your screen. You can also follow me on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Ericka Sallee, and Instagram at True Synergy _ So if you go to my link tree, you'll see all the links for the sessions that I just mentioned. You'll see some other links out there, but you'll also be able to get to my social media sites as well. So on that note, let me go ahead and wrap up by sharing what next week's conversation is going to be about. The hidden cost of being tired all the time. The hidden cost of being tired all the time. How many of you have been like, oh God, I'm so tired? And not just once, but several times throughout the day. Does that sound familiar? So I'm going to talk about that. And as we think about next week, what is next week? No, we still have a couple more weeks left for Mental Health Awareness Month. This is tied to it, right? This is tied to it and something near and dear to my heart. I'm not going to give too much of it away tonight, but I do encourage you to join me on next Tuesday for the special announcement, and also come on back and hang out with me on next Thursday for this topic, the hidden cost of being tired all the time. That's going to be a fun one. So listen, let me just make sure I check to see the comments. I'm tired right now. So see, that means this is going to be just for you. I'm tired right now. Listen, don't get me wrong. I know we all have moments. And I'm gonna hold it for next week because I might get ahead of myself, and I don't want to do that. I get it. Life in general can take some things from you, right? Making you feel some kind of way about what's going on and how you're receiving it. I get it. But I'm gonna share some more on next week. So come on back and join me then. So listen, I am so grateful that I had this opportunity to share with you. It was an outlet for me. As I said earlier, it was a lot going on, processing up and through this here mind of mine. And so this was definitely something that I was looking forward to. So thank you so much for joining me here on Ignite Your True Self. Come on back, join me next week. But listen, I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. Until I do, I want you to, yes, take care of yourselves and